Across the stars, one name brought fear to rulers and masters alike: Mira. She was known as the Rebel of Chains, the girl who burned a prison ship using only stolen tools and clever thinking. Her name spread like fire through slave camps, mining colonies, and battle fleets. Some said she had broken out of 13 prisons. Others believed she could speak to machines and command them with a glance. Most thought she had died long ago, but Mira wasn't dead. She was locked in the cold cargo hold of an old transport vessel, hidden among scrap metal and broken drones. Her arms were bruised, her face tired, and her ankles still bound in heavy shackles. She had tried to escape again, and again she had been caught. The bounty hunters this time were smarter. They didn't talk to her. They didn't even look at her. They just tossed her into the back of their ship and headed to Tharos 6, a mining planet in the outer rim, far away from any help. Tharos 6 was quiet, dusty, and mostly forgotten. Its skies were red, and its land was cracked from heat. The planet was rich in minerals, but poor in everything else. Miners worked long hours. Machines broke down often. People didn't talk much. It was not a place for heroes or legends. It was a place where people were sent to disappear. Darren was one of those people. He was a human, born on Earth but far from it now. He worked as a machine fixer, someone who repaired broken mining bots and power cells. He lived alone in a small room above a scrapyard. Darren wasn't famous or brave. He didn't fight wars or lead missions. He just fixed things and minded his own business. One evening, after a long shift, Darren walked through the scrapyard behind his workshop. The sun was setting, casting a dull orange light across the piles of junk and old metal parts. He was about to head inside when he heard a low, metallic thud from one of the cargo pods. Curious, he walked over, pushing aside a few old panels. The pod was dented and scorched. Its door was barely hanging on. Inside, it was dark and silent until he noticed movement. A figure was lying near the back, barely breathing. He stepped closer. His eyes adjusted to the dim light. She was chained, her arms pulled tightly behind her back. Her skin was scratched and bruised. Her clothes were torn. But even in that weak, broken state, there was something powerful about her presence, like a fire waiting to spark. Her eyes opened slowly. They were sharp and clear, and they locked onto his face. Darren stepped back. "You need help." She didn't answer. He looked down and noticed the collar on her neck. It had the mark of the Vorak Dominion, the empire that controlled dozens of planets and enslaved millions. The collar had blinking red lights and a steel lock, a control unit. "A tracker. I shouldn't be doing this," Darren muttered. He knew what that symbol meant. He knew what would happen if the Vorak found out he had interfered, but he also knew what it meant to see someone in pain and to walk away. Darren returned to his workshop, grabbed his toolkit, and hurried back to the pod. Mira hadn't moved. She just watched him with careful eyes. "I'm not with them," he said softly as he knelt beside her. "I'm not your enemy." He studied the lock on the collar. It was old tech, brutal but simple. A few careful movements, a bypass with an energy pin, and the collar clicked open. It fell to the ground with a soft clang. Mira didn't move. She stared at the collar for a long time. Then she slowly sat up, her chains still clinking. She looked at Darren, confused, suspicious. "You're human," she finally said, her voice dry. Darren nodded. "Yeah." She tilted her head. "Why would you do that?" "I don't like chains," Darren replied simply. "No one should wear them." Mira didn't answer. She just looked down at her hands, at the red marks where the cuffs had rubbed. Her skin raw. "Are you Mira?" Darren asked carefully. "The one from the stories?" Mira's eyes flickered. "Stories lie." He gave a quiet smile. "Maybe, but I think this one is real." She looked at him again, harder this time. "You freed me, but do you know what that means?" No, Darren said honestly, but I guess I'll find out. Mira leaned her head back against the metal wall and closed her eyes. In that quiet moment, beneath a broken sky on a forgotten planet, a legend began to shift. Mira sat in silence inside the dark cargo pod. Her wrists still hurt from the heavy cuffs, and her body was tired. But something strange filled her chest, a feeling she hadn't known in years. The collar was gone. She touched the side of her neck, half expecting to feel the cold metal or get shocked by the control chip. But it was really gone. The lock had clicked, the lights had turned off, and for the first time in a long time she was unmarked, and the man who had done it was human. His name was Darren, and he wasn't strong or loud like the guards she used to fight. He didn't carry a weapon or wear armor. He wore a simple brown jacket, dusty boots, and had kind eyes. Myra didn't trust kind eyes. Still, she followed him when he offered help. Her body needed food, water, and rest. She knew better than to ignore survival. Darren led her to the back of his workshop. It wasn't big, but it was clean. There were tools on the walls, shelves full of wires and spare parts, and a small table with 2 chairs. In the corner, there was a sleeping mat with a thin blanket. "You can rest here," Darren said, placing a warm drink beside the mat. "It's safe. No one checks this place." Mira didn't answer. She scanned the room quickly, looking for exits, hidden cameras, or any sign of betrayal. "There's no lock on the door," he added. "You can leave if you want." That surprised her. Most people who found out who she was would call the nearest bounty team within seconds. But he offered her a drink, a bed, freedom. Mira sat down on the mat, her back against the wall. "You don't know what you've done." Darren sat in the chair near the table. He didn't touch any weapons. He didn't even try to come closer. "I saw someone who needed help. That's enough for me." She narrowed her eyes. "You think this is a simple thing? You remove one collar and the galaxy just lets it go?" "No," Darren replied. "But I also don't think it's right to leave someone in chains." For a while, there was only silence between them. Outside, the sky turned darker. The red sun of Tharos 6 sank behind the distant hills. Wind moved across the dust fields, rattling old metal and blowing sand through the cracks. Mira sipped the warm drink slowly. It wasn't fancy, but it tasted real. Not like the synthetic stuff fed to prisoners. "You're not like the others," she said finally. "Others?" "The bounty hunters, the guards. The ones who look at me and see a prize." "I'm not interested in rewards," Darren said simply. "I fix machines." "That's it," Mira tilted her head. "Then why are you on a planet like this?" Darren gave a short laugh. "I ask myself the same question every day." She watched him for a moment. "Longer, you're alone." He nodded. "I guess I am." There was something sad in his voice, but he didn't hide it. That made Mira pause. Most people covered their pain with anger or lies. Darren just accepted it. That night, Mira didn't sleep much. Even without the collar, her body stayed alert. She had learned long ago that peace could be a trap. But this time nothing happened. No alarms, no footsteps, no chains. Just quiet. The next morning, Mira woke up to the smell of food. Darren was cooking something in a small pan near the table. It was simple, some dried grains with local vegetables, but to her, it was a feast. "Thought you might be hungry," he said. She took the bowl without a word, eating slowly. Her body still felt weak, but a little stronger than the day before. After breakfast, Darren returned to fixing a broken mining drone on his bench. He didn't ask her questions. He didn't try to control her. He just worked while she sat nearby, watching. After a while, she stood up and walked to the corner where some old machine parts were stacked. "I can help." Darren looked up. "You?" "Sure." Mira gave a small nod. "I know machines. Slaves were trained to fix things too." He smiled gently. "Then we'll fix them together." That became their rhythm. During the day, they repaired broken equipment, drones, lifters, power cells. At night, they sat quietly, sometimes sharing stories, sometimes saying nothing. Mira began to feel something she hadn't felt in years. Normal. But peace doesn't last forever. On the fourth day, Darren returned from a supply run with a serious look on his face. "Mira," he said, closing the workshop door. "There's a problem." Her eyes narrowed. "What kind?" "A Vorok ship landed on the far side of the colony. I overheard their scouts. They're not looking for minerals." Mira stood up. "They're looking for me." He nodded. She didn't panic. She had lived most of her life being hunted. But this time, it felt different. This time, someone else could get hurt. "You shouldn't have helped me," she said quietly. Darren looked at her. "Maybe not, but I don't regret it." She stared at him for a long time. Then she whispered, "If they find out I'm here, they'll destroy this place. And they won't stop with just me." "I'm not going to give you up," Darren said firmly. "We'll find a way out." For the first time in a long time, Mira felt something warm inside her. Hope. Darren checked the door again, making sure it was sealed. He had never seen a Vorok ship this close before. Tall black towers with red lights had landed on the far side of the colony. Their soldiers moved quietly, but with purpose. They weren't mining. They were hunting. Mira stood near the workbench, holding a small energy tool in her hand. Her body was tense. Her mind moved faster than ever. The moment Darren told her about the ship, she knew the peace was over. "They will scan every home," she said. "They will search the scrapyard. This place won't stay hidden for long." Darren didn't argue. "Then we need to move. I have a friend on the North Ridge. He flies small cargo ships. He might help us escape." "No," Mira replied quickly. "They'll track your friend too. If we bring him into this, he'll lose everything." Darren walked to the table and picked up a small device. "I can wipe the tracker signals. If we leave before nightfall, we might stay ahead of them." But Mira shook her head. "They're not just here for me. They want to send a message. They want fear to spread again." Darren looked up. "What do you mean?" She turned toward the window. "If they catch me now, they won't kill me in silence. They'll show it to every system. They want others to believe that even the strongest rebel can be chained again." Darren stepped closer. "Then let's not let them catch you." Mira returned to the cargo pod that had brought her here. She searched through its broken panels, pulled out 2 old cloaks, and handed one to Darren. "We need to leave the colony," she said. "There's a tunnel near the outer cliffs. I found it years ago during an escape. The entrance is small, but it leads to an old mining path. From there, we can disappear." Darren nodded. "Let me grab my toolkit. I might need it." They moved quickly, wrapping the cloaks tightly and keeping their heads down. Mira moved with silent steps, always scanning the streets and rooftops. Darren followed her lead. The colony had changed in just one day. Vorok drones floated through the sky, scanning with red beams. Citizens walked quickly, eyes low. Everyone knew trouble had arrived, but no one dared to ask questions. Mira and Darren slipped through a side alley near the back of the scrapyard. As they turned a corner, Mira grabbed his arm and pulled him back. 2 Vorok soldiers stood at the gate ahead, checking each worker that passed. Their armor was dark gray, their eyes hidden behind black visors. "We go over the rooftops," Mira whispered. They climbed a stack of crates and pulled themselves onto the roof of an old warehouse. The metal creaked under their weight, but Mira moved like a shadow. She paused only to make sure Darren was behind her. They reached the edge and jumped to the next roof. Below, a child looked up from a balcony and pointed. Mira gave a small signal with her hand. The child quickly lowered their arm and said nothing. Not everyone feared her. Some still remembered the stories. They finally reached the far side of the colony, where a long metal wall ran along the cliff. Mira stopped beside a hidden panel and kicked it twice. Dust fell, and a small opening appeared. "This is it," she said. "Once we go in, there's no turning back." Darren looked at the narrow tunnel. "Lead the way." The tunnel was dark and narrow, but Mira knew every step. They moved in silence, the sound of dripping water echoing around them. After half an hour, the path opened into a wide cave lit by natural crystals in the walls. It was beautiful and strange. Darren sat on a rock, wiping sweat from his forehead. "So what now? We hide forever?" Mira didn't answer at first. She stood near the edge of the cave, looking up at the tiny patch of sky far above. "No," she said at last. "I've spent too much time hiding, but I can't run into battle either." Darren looked up. "What do you want to do?" Mira's voice was quiet but firm. "I want to change the story." He raised an eyebrow. "What story?" "The one they tell about me," she replied. "They say I'm a danger, that I destroy everything, that I'm a beast who can't be tamed." "But you're not," Darren said. "I was," she admitted. "Because that's what they made me. That's what happens when you live in chains too long. But when you took off that collar, something changed." Darren said nothing. He just listened. Mira turned to him. "I don't know why you did it. Maybe you were just being kind. Maybe you were tired of watching people suffer. But whatever your reason, it gave me a choice. For the first time in my life, I had a choice." A soft breeze passed through the cave. Mira continued. "I don't want revenge. I want freedom, for others too. And if that means standing up again, then I will." Darren stood up beside her. "Then I'll stand with you." She looked at him, surprised. "You don't even know me." "I know." "Enough," he said. At that moment, in the quiet of the hidden cave, the rebel and the fixer made a promise. Not just to survive, but to do more. To rise. The old mining tunnel opened into a wide cave, hidden deep below the surface of Tharos 6. Glowing stones in the walls gave off a soft blue light. Darren and Mira stopped there, sitting on rocks, breathing in the silence. For now, they were safe. But Mira's mind wasn't calm. She sat still, listening to the soft hum of wind blowing through a distant crack in the cave. Her thoughts were louder than the wind. She remembered the faces of those who once followed her. Fighters, dreamers, slaves who had chosen to rise. Many were gone, now lost to battles or betrayed by those they trusted. Darren watched her from the other side of the cave. He could see the worry in her eyes, though she said nothing. "You don't have to carry it alone," he said gently. Mira looked up. "What?" "The past. The weight of it. You're not alone anymore." She studied him for a moment. "You don't know what I've done." "I know you didn't give up," Darren replied. "And I know you saved lives. That's enough for me." For a while, neither spoke. Then Mira stood and walked to the far wall, brushing her hand over old markings. "Carved into the stone. They brought me here once," she said. "After my second escape. A man named Urain led us through this tunnel. He believed in unity. Said one voice wouldn't change the galaxy, but many could. We stayed hidden here for 3 nights before they found us." Darren stood and walked beside her. "What happened?" "He gave himself up so the rest of us could escape." Darren lowered his eyes. "Did you ever see him again?" "No," Mira answered softly. "But I still remember his words." Suddenly, a sharp beep came from Darren's belt. He pulled out his scanner and checked it. A red light blinked across the screen. "What is it?" Mira asked quickly. "Movement. 5 heat signatures, less than 200 meters away. There." Coming through the tunnel, Mira's eyes narrowed. "Vorak scouts." Darren grabbed his bag. "Can we hide deeper?" "There's no time," she said. "They'll be here in minutes." He looked around. "Then what do we do?" Mira reached into her coat and pulled out a small energy stick, a weapon made from spare machine parts. "Not powerful, but strong enough to stun." "I don't want to fight," she said. but I won't be taken again. I can create a distraction, Darren said. If I reroute the scanner pulses from the cave ceiling, I might collapse the side wall. That would trap them, buy us time. Mira gave him a surprised look. You sure? Darren nodded. Just tell me where to aim. The sound of boots echoed through the tunnel. Vorak soldiers moved with precision, lights on their weapons, cutting through the dark. The lead scout raised a hand, signaling the group to stop. There's life here, the scout said in a sharp voice. I can feel it. Just then, a loud crack echoed above them. The side of the tunnel shook. Stones and metal beams fell with a roar, cutting the tunnel in half and trapping the scouts behind a wall of debris. Darren dropped the tool in his hand and backed away, his heart pounding. That worked better than I expected, he said, surprised. Mira gave a quick smile. Remind me not to underestimate you again. From behind the blocked path, the scouts shouted commands, trying to clear the rubble. They'll call for backup. Mira said, This place won't stay secret now. We'll have to move again, Darren replied. She nodded. Yes, but not yet. Darren looked confused. What do you mean? We have something more important to do first. Later that night, Mira and Darren reached a small outpost hidden in the rocks above the eastern cliffs. It was an old rebel signal base, broken and silent for years. But Mira remembered the access code. The door opened with a slow hiss. Inside, dust covered the floor. Broken lights hung from the ceiling. But in the corner sat an old communication panel. Darren ran his fingers over the keys. This still works? With your help, Myra said. Maybe it can. They worked together, clearing parts, fixing wires, connecting power lines from the small battery Darren had carried. After nearly an hour, the screen lit up. Now what? He asked. Mira typed a short message. A signal encrypted, clear, and powerful enough to be picked up by anyone listening on the rebel frequency. She turned to Darren. I'm calling them, she said. Who? The forgotten, the ones who used to fight. The ones still in hiding. Slaves, refugees, traitors, old friends. If they hear this message, they'll know I'm still alive, and that it's time. Darren looked at her with respect. Are you ready for that? Mira paused. No, but I have to try. She pressed the send button. Across the stars, the signal spread. A voice lost to time began to echo again, stronger, wiser, and no longer alone. The signal had gone out. A short, powerful message, broadcast from an old rebel outpost deep beneath Tharos 6. The chains are breaking. The fire lives. Mira is alive. It spread across forgotten systems, jumped through hidden channels, and reached ships and colonies long abandoned by hope. In the dark corners of the galaxy, where people still whispered her name, eyes widened. People stood still. They listened. And they remembered. Back on Tharos 6, Mira stood in front of the communication screen, watching the final line blink. Transmission sent. Darren leaned on the dusty table beside her. It's done. Now what? We wait, Mira replied. If the right people heard that message, they'll come. Not to fight, but to join. To build something better. Darren gave a small nod, though worry still sat on his face. And the wrong people? They'll hear it too. Mira looked at him. They already have. 3 solar systems away, aboard a high Vorak command ship, a tall officer stood before a screen filled with red alerts. His eyes narrowed as he listened to the intercepted message again. Mira, he muttered, still breathing. He turned to his second in command. Send the word. Double patrols in all rebel sectors. Place a bounty on the human who helped her, dead or alive. Yes, Commander, the officer replied quickly. The Vorak Empire didn't forgive. And it never forgot. 2 days later, the small cave where Myra and Darren had been hiding grew colder. A storm passed over the surface, shaking the rocky ground. But inside, It was quiet, too quiet. Darren was fixing a small cooking unit while Mira sharpened a broken metal rod into a makeshift blade. Suddenly, the signal device buzzed. Darren rushed to it. A new message appeared on the screen, encrypted. Simple but clear. We heard. Meet at Outpost Darrenis. 7 rotations. Stay in the dark. Mira's eyes widened. Darrenis. It's real. What is it? Darren asked. An old safe zone. One of the last rebel bases not captured by the Vorak. I never knew if it still existed. Darren checked the map. It's far, across the open belt. We'd need a ship. Mira stood, her eyes sharp. I know where to find one. They moved again that night, under the cover of darkness. Mira led Darren to a hidden garage in the hills, once used by smugglers. A single ship remained inside, rusted, worn, but still whole. Darren looked at it with doubt. It's missing 2 thrusters. I can fix one, Mira said. You fix the other. They worked side by side for hours, welding parts, reconnecting wires, and loading supplies. By sunrise, the ship was ready barely. They climbed aboard. Mira took the controls, while Darren checked the navigation panel. Ready? He asked. No, Mira replied, but let's go anyway. With a deep rumble, the old ship lifted off. Dust and rock blew across the hills as it rose into the sky. As the colony shrank behind them, Mira looked back once. I was a slave there, she said softly. Now I'm leaving by choice, Darren nodded, and not alone. The journey to Darrenis wasn't easy. The ship flew through asteroid fields, dodged patrol scans, and passed broken satellites. They slept in short shifts, took turns steering, and shared quiet meals. But something was changing between them. Mira, once cold and guarded, started to laugh, just a little. Darren, always quiet and careful, spoke more about his past. About Earth, about the brother he lost in a mining accident, and the reason he had left everything behind. I thought I came here to hide, he said one night. But maybe I came here to find you. Mira didn't respond right away, but her eyes softened. You gave me more than freedom, she said. You gave me a second chance. When they reached Darrenis, they didn't land right away. The outpost was hidden inside a deep canyon, covered by rocks and shield fields. But the beacon was active, blinking slowly on the scanner. Mira sent a coded signal. A long pause followed then. A reply, welcome back, Firebearer. Land in Bay 3. As the ship descended, Darren looked out the window. People stood in rows. All kinds: humans, aliens, half-machine survivors. Some carried old weapons. Others wore mining clothes. All looked up as Mira's ship landed. The hatch opened. Mira stepped out first. She expected silence. But the moment her boots touched the ground, someone clapped. Then another. Then the whole group began to cheer, not loudly, but with steady respect. A short woman stepped forward. Her face was scarred, and one of her arms was made of polished steel. She gave Mira a small nod. Never thought I'd see you again, she said. Mira smiled. Still fighting, Lena? Always, Lena replied. But the fight is changing. Mira turned and waved for Darren to step out. He looked unsure, but followed. This is Darren, she said. He's the reason I'm here. Lena looked at him, then gave a nod. Then he's one of us. As the group returned to the main hall, Mira stood quietly for a moment, watching them. So many faces, so many hopes. She whispered to herself, this time, we rise together. The Darrenis outpost buzzed with quiet energy. It wasn't a large place, just a cluster of underground rooms and tunnels carved into the canyon side, but it was alive. Generators hummed softly, lights flickered to life, and people moved with purpose. Mira walked through the narrow halls with Darren beside her. Wherever she passed, heads turned. Some whispered her name. Others simply nodded, their eyes full of respect and something else, hope. Darren noticed how carefully she walked. Not proud or arrogant, but alert and steady. This was no longer just a hiding place. It was a beginning. Inside the main planning chamber, a group of leaders gathered around a large table. Maps of systems, colonies, and trade routes covered the walls. Supplies were listed on old tablets, and broken weapons sat in piles waiting to be repaired. Lena, the steel-armed woman who had welcomed them, stood at the center. "We've received signals from 6 systems," she said. "After your message, Mira, something has changed. People are talking again. The spark is back." "But talk isn't enough," Mira said quietly. "We can't win another war with weapons alone." "We've tried that." Darren looked at her curious. "Then what do we do?" Mira stepped forward and touched a spot on the map. "We build something new, not to fight, but to connect. The Vorok want us scared and silent. So we do the opposite. We speak. We help. We protect those they ignore." Lena raised an eyebrow. "You're saying we become a shield?" "A voice," Myra replied. "A signal across the stars. Not just a rebellion, but a reason." The days that followed were filled with movement. Darren worked in the outpost's machine room, repairing old radios and restoring power cells. Mira trained with the others, not just in combat, but in strategy and communication. Messages were sent across deep space. Small teams were formed and sent to nearby colonies to listen, to learn, to offer help where the Vorok had failed. And slowly, responses came back. In the frozen mines of Kira-9, ex-slaves stood with old rebel flags. In the hidden caves of Velmora, young fighters lit signal fires at night. On the quiet moon of Ravas, a peaceful village sent food and medicines, even though they had little. It was not an army. It was something stronger. One evening, Darren sat outside the outpost under a sky full of stars. He looked up quietly, holding a small transmitter he had fixed that morning. It was sending soft pulses-coded messages to nearby systems. Mira joined him, sitting on the stone beside him. Her face was calm but thoughtful. "You've changed a lot," Darren said. She looked at him. "So have you," he smiled. "I used to think I had no place in any of this. Just a fixer on a quiet planet." "You still are," Mira said. "But you fixed more than machines." Darren glanced at her. "Did you ever imagine leading like this? Without a gun in your hand?" "No," she admitted. "I thought strength was fire and fear. But now I see it's something else." They sat in silence for a while. Then, without warning, an urgent call came through the main communicator. Lena's voice echoed through the speaker. Darren's ship was spotted. Vorok patrol intercepted it at the edge of the belt. He wasn't aboard, but they took the pilot. "They're calling it a traitor ship." Mira stood at once. "Who was flying it?" A young rebel entered the room, holding a report. His name was Noro, Darren's friend. He helped them escape Tharo 6. Darren's face turned pale. "I asked him for help. I brought him into this." The message continued. "The Vorok have sent a warning. They're holding the pilot. Public execution in 2 rotations. Unless Mira surrenders." A chill fell over the room. Everyone looked at Myra. She stood tall, her jaw clenched, her hands in fists, but her eyes, for the first time in days, looked tired. That night, Mira sat alone in the old control room. Darren entered quietly. "You're thinking of giving yourself up," he said. She didn't answer. "They'll kill you," he said softly. "This isn't a trade, it's a trap." "I know," she replied. "But Noro shouldn't suffer for what I started." "He chose to help, just like me," Darren said. She looked at him. "You would have done the same?" He nodded. "Yes, because what we're building here, it's worth something. More than fear. More than revenge." Mira turned her eyes to the glowing screen. "If I walk into that trap, they'll silence me. And the voice we started building will fade." Darren sat beside her. "Then we find another way." The next morning, the outpost came alive with quiet urgency. Plans were drawn, maps studied. A message sent across the movement. "The Vorok want silence. We respond with unity. Mira addressed the gathered fighters. We don't attack. We don't run. We show them what we are now more than rebels. We protect our own, not with fire, but with presence. We will be seen. And so it began. From 6 different planets, small groups of ships launched, each carrying no weapons, only light beacons, food, and messages of peace. They would all arrive at the same time. They wouldn't fight. They would stand. The 6 ships moved through the darkness of space, each carrying a small group of people who believed in something new, something more than fear and chains. Mira stood on the bridge of the lead ship, looking out at the endless stars. Darren was beside her, silent but steady. Neither spoke much. Words felt small compared to what was coming. They weren't soldiers. They carried no weapons, only light beacons, supplies, and messages of peace. Their plan was simple but dangerous. They would gather at the edge of the Vorak-controlled systems and show the galaxy that resistance was not just about fighting, but about hope. As the ships reached the meeting point, the Vorak fleet was waiting. Large black warships blocked the path like giants, their red lights glowing ominously. A voice came over the comms from the Vorak commander. Surrender immediately. This is your final warning. Mira stepped forward and spoke calmly into the microphone. We do not come to fight. We come to show that your chains no longer hold us. We are free. For a moment, there was silence. Then, without warning, the Vorak ships moved forward, weapons glowing. But something unexpected happened. The 6 ships lit their beacons bright, beautiful colors that spread across space like stars. Reborn. The lights did not blind or harm, but they shone with warmth and strength. Across the fleet, Vorak soldiers paused, confused by this peaceful defiance. Myra's voice echoed again. You may control our bodies, but you will never control our spirit. We will stand together, not with weapons, but with light. Darren watched as some Vorak ships lowered their weapons, hesitation growing. Then, one by one, smaller ships began to break formation, moving away from the fleet. The signal had done something no battle could. It reminded everyone, slave, soldier, or stranger, that freedom was stronger than fear. Back at Darrenus, the outpost received word of the event. Cheers erupted quietly but powerfully. Lena smiled. They listened. Mira leaned against a wall, her eyes soft. We did not win with weapons. We won with hope, Darren nodded. And with you leading, that hope will grow. Days turned into weeks. The message of peace and unity spread. More colonies joined the movement. More people stood up not to fight, but to live free. The Vorak Empire did not disappear overnight. There were battles ahead, hard choices and losses. But for the first time in a long time, the galaxy saw a future where chains could break. One evening, Mira and Darren stood outside the outpost, looking at the stars. You saved me, Mira said quietly. No, Darren replied. You freed yourself. I only helped. She smiled. Still, I'm glad you were there. He looked at her warmly. Always. Under the vast sky, 2 friends, once strangers, stood together. The rebel who was feared across the galaxy, and the human who dared to believe in freedom. Together, they had changed everything.